The now co-chair of the Republican National Committee, Lara Trump, appeared on Newsmax, and potentially I have clips from a couple interviews, but she is just so ridiculous, and it's so indicative of this current moment that she has the position that she does, because she's Trump, and the Republican Party now is just synonymous with Trump. It doesn't stand for much. It isn't much outside of MAGA, and that should be understood. And Lara Trump, like I said, exemplifies that. So we're going to go through a few clips of her in interviews, and I'll respond. First, we'll go with this one.
What do you see as the strategy here on the Trump side for this debate?
Well, listen, I think that this is really, it's more than just Joe Biden actually being able to stand up for 90 minutes, at a podium and be coherent. Joe Biden has to defend his record, Rob, and his record is abysmal. I think that this is an opportunity for these two candidates to remind the American people about life when they were president. Joe Biden's president right now. We can look around and tell how bad things have gotten. And Donald Trump has a great opportunity to say, hey, remember when I was president and gas was $1.87 a gallon?
Just the quickest of pauses of your viewing of this video to request, if you're not already, to become subscribed to the channel by clicking that subscribe button. It's free, it's easy, but we greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Remember when I was president and we had a secure...
Why was it so low again? Remind me? Was it because our economy had collapsed? Demand had gone through the floor? Because there was no need to use energy like we were using it before, at least with gas? Because we were stuck in our houses? And someone was mismanaging that crisis, making it extend how long we would have to take such precautions. And this gets to a similar talking point that we heard here with a Republican congressman.
The American voters...
Oh, sorry, this is a Republican National Committee chairman also, Whatley.
The American voters are going to go vote based on whether they are better off today than they were 4 years ago. And there's not a single metric that President Biden can show where America is better off than they were 4 years ago.
Every metric, Whatley. Every single one. 4 years ago, we were in the middle of a global crisis that your nominee was mismanaging so badly, like I said in a different segment, that retrospectively we have medical professionals saying hundreds of thousands of people died who didn't have to, because we didn't have a president who was governing correctly in that crisis. That's why. As shown by Biden coming into office, actually taking things seriously, actually governing like an adult and being able to get things under control. So much so that we went from getting hit harder by that crisis compared to other countries, our counterparts, to recovering under Biden way more successfully than they did by the metrics, sir. And so 4 years ago, we were in a disaster. Unemployment high. Crime, I'm trying to remember where exactly 4 years ago was, but spiking. And again, your presumptive nominee was not handling it. That's why he lost. That's why Biden even became president. And so all of the metrics. And the very, not even getting this again, but the very price increases, that's the main crux of their argument as to why Biden's bad. If indeed you say that's because of spending, there was far more recovery spending done while Trump was president than Biden. And yes, it takes a second for that to be felt economically and for it to impact the inflation figures. Not to mention the supply chain problems that also weren't being dealt with properly under Trump, and that exacerbated down the line the inflation, plus corporate price gouging, which obviously Trump would never want to deal with. And so they take no responsibility for that. And then, I just want to, I have more clips of Lara Trump. I'm sorry. We just did a couple segments and they're getting so long because I'm getting so ranty today, and I apologize for that. But if you say all of the job losses, all of the people who were dying, all of the crimes that were being committed with this historic increase in crime under Trump, that you say that's not Trump's fault because of the pandemic. Okay. I hear you in a sense. I don't excuse his mishandling, but I hear you that he didn't cause the initial thing that caused that situation. All right. If you say that and then you don't also add that into your calculus about Biden and his presidency and how he was trying to get those conditions under control, then I can't take you seriously in this argument. Here's more.
Anderson Cooper last night said it was outrageous for anyone to suggest that Joe Biden is getting juiced for these big moments and these big debates. If anybody watched the State of the Union and thought that Joe Biden was there just on his own bloodstream, I mean, you'd have to be out of your mind to think that they're not pumping him with something to get him ready for these things, because he just doesn't function like that. I mean, he about exploded out of the room at that State of the Union. So, I mean, it's going to be such an interesting night because, again, they don't have a prompter. He's got to think on his feet. It's one thing to get up there juiced up and just read the lines, right? I mean, he's going to have to actually think, and he's going to have to adapt when Trump hits him with something he's not expecting. It's going to be interesting.
It will be interesting. And I think the problem, too, is, they try to deny that there is anything different about the Joe Biden we saw at the State of the Union. Rob, that's the problem, is there's such a vast difference in Joe Biden, the guy who needs help getting into his.
Okay. So where do I want to start with this one? The friend of the show, David Pakman, I think in a conversation with a Fox host, was really getting into the nitty-gritty of this issue and did it well. And he's talked to medical professionals who he asked about, is there even a drug that could do what they're alleging is being done to Biden? And the answer is no. Okay. So, and then when he pressed the Fox host on, can you give an example of a type of drug that you're thinking of? The Fox host said something to the effect of, we're getting too down in the weeds. And just wanted to make a general point. But you're making a pretty provocative statement. He's juiced up! So then you have to do the research, which they never want to do, and find out if that's even possible. Meaning, if Biden were the caricature that you've portrayed him to be, based on often out of context, spliced, diced, cropped videos, and you've, depicted this version of Biden, if he's that version of him that you actually have alleged, then there's not really something that can make him then a good debater or sharp at a State of the Union. That's just not a thing. Otherwise, lots of people would be using that in their older years, and we'd have a whole different world. So they're just sort of pulling that out of, well, you know where, and doing it to take away from solid performances from Biden. And they're so scared. I'm not going to say that. Am I going to say that? I don't think so. They're doing something in their pants. They're so worried about Biden going up on stage and doing well and Trump not. And all of the lies they've been telling about Biden sort of being exposed as such in front of the American people. Because imagine if you've been seeing these little clips of Biden, and maybe you're even a Fox News viewer and you think, you can't even get through a sentence. And some of them are super selective moments that actually look sort of bad. Often they're dishonestly presented, often they're cut, whatever. But let's just say, even just first moments only, and then you watch the debate and he sort of beats Trump, your whole worldview is going to be shattered. So they have to preemptively create an answer for people. Just get ready. If Trump loses and Biden makes full of him, it's because of some magic drug that we can't even name. Or as someone who actually doesn't just watch the out of context stuff and has watched a bunch of Biden speeches, he's kind of always like that in bigger speeches. So they act like the State of the Union Day. There's something special. Anytime there's a big crowd, he just sort of shouts louder like a normal person. And that's all they mean. We talked about this before. They're getting so obsessed with aesthetics that him sort of talking quietly, occasionally mumbling, is proof of something. When every time it counts, he goes on stage, he speaks more loudly, and he has more energy. Okay. I also speak at different volumes and with different energy depending on the context or the environment. And so I do think they're so scared that it's not going to go well that they're setting up excuses. Here's another interview moment.
And the convention happens next month, and your nominee could be sentenced to actual jail time 4 days before everything kicks off in Milwaukee. Have you planned for that at the RNC?
Yeah, we're working on that right now. I'm actually going up to Milwaukee this week, and we're going to have a series of conversations. But look, we expect that Donald Trump is going to be in Milwaukee and he's going to be able to accept that nomination. And if not, we will make whatever contingency planning we need to make for it. But the fact is, he's going to be our nominee and he's going to be the 47th president of the United States.
Can you talk about those contingency plans?
No, I think that right now we're in the process of putting everything together for.
So it is stunning to think about, and we've heard the speculation about maybe he'd have to give his convention speech from jail, which I have a hard time believing that's going to be what he gets, to be honest, out of this case. I think some of the other cases, I think he could get real prison time. But this one, I don't think that'll be what he's sentenced to. Just because when you look at other falsification of business records cases that were escalated to felonies because they're covering up an underlying crime, which was his, plenty of those people didn't get prison time. And so knowing Judge Merchan, knowing how Trump's being treated, probably he's going to look at, okay, there's examples they could point to of someone not. Obviously, you also have Trump not feeling any guilt or regret about his actions. So that should play into a worse sentence. But I think he's going to end up not actually being sent to prison, probation or something. And that should allow him to show up in Milwaukee, despite him reportedly calling it a horrible city and toying with the idea of staying in Chicago instead and then commuting to his speech. Here's a Lincoln Project ad on that.
Milwaukee, our town. The Bucks, the Brewers, Harley Davidson. Brats, cheese curds, best beer in the world. We work hard, we play hard. We're damn proud of Milwaukee. It's home, and we love it. If Donald Trump says Milwaukee is a terrible city, imagine how little he thinks of the rest of Wisconsin.
There it is. I'll leave it on that. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments. And if you want to get the daily bonus show, you can do so by clicking that join button below.